Unlock the secrets, learn new tactics, and build a winning strategy to win the aging game. Welcome to the Aging Game with Bruce and Susan.
Welcome to the Aging Game with Bruce and Susan. Great to be here with everybody today. We have a very interesting and informative seminar or presentation today. Today is episode 2, season 2, episode 4. The title is Safeguarding Seniors, Tips to Outsmart Scammers and Staying Safe. And, as I think about it, it's really not just seniors, it's everybody. And we're fortunate. We have Collier County Sheriff Lieutenant Brian Sawyer, and he's going to share great knowledge with us, and we're excited about having you here.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a privilege to be here with you today.
Thank you. And can we mention our special guest, Riley?
Yes, we have a special guest, Riley.
Say hi.
So we're pet friendly here on our podcast. So it's great to have our pets. I'm not sure if I can bring Gigi and Rosie, but it's great to have Riley here.
Give it a whirl one day.
I'm not sure about that.
When you're out of power, you bring a dog.
Yep.
All right. Well, before we get into it, I want to share a couple questions we have from the last episode. So we had Dr. Jackie Pfaffer on with the Baker Senior Center, and I thought that was really a wonderful episode. What stuck out to me most was when she talked about the 30 female seniors that are homeless. So I definitely want to figure out something that we can do for them and share that with the listeners in upcoming episodes. But we did have 2 questions come in that I thought were really good, maybe things that we didn't totally get to. So the first one comes from Adam in Fort Myers, and he really wanted to know, is the Baker Center just for residents of Collier County, or for people in Lee County, can they join as well?
So that's a great question. So the Baker Center really is open to anyone. And so from Collier to Lee County. So if you can get to the Baker Center, you can participate. So it's not limited to just Naples people or just Fort Myers people.
That's awesome. And then we had Rebecca from Naples, who was curious about what programs and activities were the most popular at the community. I know we talked a lot about various programs that they had, but I guess Rebecca's curious about what's popular.
So, Rebecca, that's a great question. And so, Dr. Pfaffer mentioned that they have 350 volunteers there, which is amazing. And so they range the programming ranges from, just sitting down in the cafe with social to technology, which I understand is extremely popular. You can bring your phones in there and they can teach you how to use your iPhone or help you with emails. And so the technology is very important, but I also know they have music, they have karate, and they have Tai Chi, and they have yoga. And so there's just a wide range of programming there, book discussions, movies, there's programs for veterans. So it's just wide open on what they offer there. And like I said, they have 350 volunteers, and each one of those volunteers brings something to the table.
Yeah, I was when I went there for the tour, I was really surprised by their technology room with the computers and all that I just didn't think about it. But I mean, even in my line of work, I do see seniors starting to text or do different things. So it's great to know that they can go somewhere, have someone help them, and maybe if they see like a questionable email, they can bring it there to their volunteer to say, hey, what do you think I should do with this?
And what a great segue into our topic today about getting scammed, because, the emails and the texting and it's just, I'm sure our lieutenant's going to share a lot about all that. So.
Yeah. So before we get started, I have 3 statistics I want to share. I'm obsessed with numbers. I'm a total nerd. And kind of get your feel of these things as to what you think, if they're just totally crazy or if you think they're on point. All right. So according to the NASDAQ's 2024 Global Financial Crime Report, 77.7 billion of all reported global fraud was linked to elderly victims.
That sounds pretty reasonable. My guess is that it's more than that. With that, your elderly people usually have amassed money throughout their years of working. And so they have the largest pot of money for scammers to target and to get money from, as compared to younger people that just don't have that money amassed yet. So it's easier to get money from people that have it as compared to those that don't.
And I think, your statistic is interesting because it's reported.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that aren't reported.
Absolutely. And I think that most people can relate to the fact that whether they've been scammed or could have gotten scammed, they probably wouldn't report it nowadays because it's so frequent. And usually it's a nominal amount of money. In the grand scheme of it's not $1 million per se. And they're like, hey, the cops aren't going to be able to figure it out anyway. So why am I even going to take the time to report it? It's just the price of existing in our current society.
And some people could be embarrassed by it as well. And so
Yes.
they don't want to talk about it because I just got scammed and I don't want to talk about it. And
It's crazy. And then the next two kind of go together. So it said 75% of adults aged 50 to 80 have reported that they have experienced a scam attempt or fell victim to a scam that was via online, phone, email, text, or mail in the last 2 years. And then it said in the US alone in 2023, there was $3.4 billion in losses to scams among seniors, which was up 11% from 2022.
And that goes with what we were saying before, is that's likely reported information. And usually that's done through the Federal Trade Commission. Just those people that don't call in to report it or file something online. In addition, I have to think that number, as far as people that were at least attempted scammed, has to be 100%, because there's nobody out there that has not received some type of attempted scam phone call or attempted scam email, whatever else it may be. I mean, it's just rampant. There's no way that anyone that has a phone or an email address hasn't had some type of attempted scam at some point in time in the past 2 years.
And that's 3.4 billion with a B.
Yeah, with a B. It's wild. I don't know. I read it and it just was shocking to me. So I'm excited to have this today and talk about this. I mean, obviously, I've shared last episode, I fell victim to the raccoon scam. You know, I get the texts all the time, hey. And then I'm like, hey.
No.
And then it's like, you know, they get, oh, I'm so sorry. I meant to text my friend Billy, but how are you? But I text them back because I think if they're talking to me, then they're not talking to someone else. But it's probably just a bot anyways, so I'm probably not doing anything but wasting my time. But anyways.
They're capturing your
But
information.
it's everywhere.
They're capturing your phone number. They're capturing everything. when
Listen,
you're doing
if
that.
they're capturing my phone, here's what they're capturing. Pictures of my dog and my love for politics. Like, that's what's in my phone. So
Well,
they're
that's-
not getting any money. I don't have access to Zelle. I haven't set up my bank account. I'm not your ideal target.
Well, I'm sure we're going to talk more about this.
Yes, let's
So
get into
before we get into all this, so let's take a break from and meet up with one of our sponsors.
Alrighty.
Bright Star Care of Naples and Fort Myers, providing exceptional in-home care. At Bright Star Care of Naples and Fort Myers, we believe that you and your loved ones deserve nothing but the best. Our team of highly trained nurses and caregivers are committed to delivering the highest standard of in-home care. We offer a wide range of both medical and non-medical services to cater to your specific needs. From companion care and personal care to skilled nursing and therapy services, our professional care team is here to meet your needs, both now and in the future. Bright Star Care is proud to provide the highest quality of care and prioritize in-home safety. We are accredited by the Joint Commission, and all care is overseen by a registered nurse. With Bright Star Care, you can have peace of mind knowing that your loved one is in the best hands. To learn more about Bright Star Care of Naples and Fort Myers, visit us online at brightstarcare.com or give us a call at 239-992-4779. We are available 24/7 to answer any questions you may have. Bright Star Care of Naples and Fort Myers, where exceptional care meets compassion. Locally owned and operated since 2006.
All right. So I ask everybody the same question. It's my absolute favorite question I love to ask. So what is something that you know today about your field of work that you wish you knew earlier in your career?
A bunch of different things that are out there on smaller scales, but I would say people's unwillingness to change. I've seen a lot of tragedy throughout my career, some on the minor side and some on the major side, but even recognizing what someone's vulnerability is or what their problems that cause the tragedy, they oftentimes don't change. And think about drivers, for instance, on a minor scale, is you'll have some person that just has a lead foot and they like to speed, and you give them a ticket, but they don't change. And then they get another ticket and they don't change. And sometimes you do have people out there that change, but a lot of people, no matter what the consequences are, or no matter what they've suffered, aren't willing to change what their habits are.
That's actually a really good point. And I was, you know, it's interesting you mentioned the lead foot thing. I haven't had a ticket in a very long time.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Not for lack of trying on your department's part, though.
That means you're due.
No, yes, because I have a new car and I always get pulled over in the new cars. But I'm actually better. But yeah, I wonder
Are you
how many.
asking me to let everybody know that you are
Hi,
wanting a ticket?
Hi, everybody. Please don't give me a ticket. I don't want to
Is that
get in
what I'm
trouble.
hearing from you?
No, but I'm saying, like, I wonder if a ticket really does ever deter anybody, or if they just think, like, that was my number was called today, and then that does make me think, like, I people probably really don't change when they have things, impact them. I mean, something simple like that, you would think, like, especially the other day, that public semi truck T-boned a car right in front of my work. And I think, like, my gosh, can we just stop running red lights? But you have to, make that conscientious change. I don't think people do it.
And people make mistakes, and tickets are set up for that, where it's not catastrophic if you get one citation.
Right.
Everyone makes a mistake. You may change lanes without looking, or you thought you had enough time with the light, whatever it may be. You get one ticket, you move on, but their tickets are set up. So if you end up getting ticket after ticket after ticket, there's a significant financial impact on you, and the points on your license can cause your license to get suspended.
Yeah, that's good.
Interesting. So before we start getting into all of this, because I know we have a great topic, can you tell us a little bit more about you and what you do and your background and everything?
Sure. Right now, I cover our prevention and misdemeanor services division, so our crime prevention unit, a lot of community engagement, and some of our investigatory, including our retail theft investigators, which are doing quite a good job out there. We get a decent amount of retail theft. Everybody does, but we do a great job on cracking down on these retail thieves. I'm a hostage negotiator with our agency, but I was mainly a supervisor of a detective unit for a vast majority of my career, and also on our actual tactical SWAT team.
Wow. That's fascinating.
Yes.
And how long have you been doing this?
25 years.
25 years.
Started when I was 9, if you're trying to do the math.
Very young age. That's good. Way to go to start young.
So great. Well, it's great to have you here, and we're looking forward to you sharing your knowledge, and I'm sure our listeners are really going to benefit from what you're going to share.
Hopefully.
So
Definitely.
So let's talk about some common scams that you see and that are, that you're aware of, and how people can protect themselves.
One of the main things that I tell you is don't believe anything. Some of the main scams that we see are, especially in this area, grandkids in jail or in the hospital, jury duty scam, IRS scams. Those are probably the three main ones that we see because they're pretty generic. Anybody can miss jury duty. So if you're a normal, law-abiding, upstanding citizen, it's something that could happen to you. If somebody called you and said, "Hey, you've got a warrant for bank robbery," you're going to be like, "That's a scam," because there's no way that you would have a warrant for bank robbery. But something that could happen to somebody, these scammers have found out that, hey, if I pose that, then they may believe it. But ultimately, anything out there nowadays can be a scam. Criminals have learned all these different niches, things that were like a no-go area, like a pastor of your church, something like that. Normally, that was just you don't go there. Now people don't care, and so they'll pose to be anybody, law enforcement, pastors, kids, doesn't matter. Whatever it is, they will pretend to be it. They're not going to call you. They're not going to text you and say, "Hey, I'm a criminal." They're going to pose as somebody that you would have a legitimate interest in dealing with. And that's their main crux in getting people to buy in.
That's what you see most common.
Absolutely. Some of your scams are rudimentary because it's not like there's two groups of people out there that are scamming. You can be anywhere in the world and try to scam people. So there are countries, like governments of countries, that run scam operations. There are individuals, there are criminal groups, all sorts of different things that are out there. So there's no one size fits all, or if we stop these 10 people, it's all going to stop. It's a large scale issue. People have to accept it and change the habits that they have, that they've grown accustomed to throughout their life.
It feels to me like it's whack-a-mole. Like you knock one down and then three more pop up. You remember that awesome game? I was really good at it. But that's what it feels like. I mean, 2 years ago, I wasn't getting these text messages all the time saying, "Hey."
So do you see that if you got scammed once, more than likely you're going to get scammed again?
Uh, Depending on how you learn, you may, if you learn from what your mistake was, you may minimize your ability to get scammed. The problem is, and you brought it up, Susan, is if you respond to somebody, if you answer your phone, if you respond to a text, they know that there's somebody at the other end of that line, because there's a lot of numbers out there that there's nothing that exists with it. But otherwise, they're like, okay, I've got a person at the other end of that line. I can target them and I can send it to other people through the dark web that, hey, this is a valid number. This person actually responded to me. So these criminals are more likely to try to scam or try to scam you because they recognize that there's a person that is willing to interact with them.
Which is very difficult, and not only, it's my business and my number is my business. And
Yeah.
so people call me and I automatically answer and I get, countless bogus phone calls, but I can't just let that go into voicemail because it could be a customer.
And that's the difference between a business and an individual. Businesses, you have to have that customer interaction. So you are more susceptible to being victimized because you have to answer your phone. But for people, individuals out there, if I don't recognize the number, I don't answer the phone. If it's important, if it's somebody that needs something from me or has a legitimate interactive issue, they're going to leave me a voicemail. Same thing with text messages, same things with emails. If I don't recognize it, I'm not responding to it at all. If I want to conduct some type of business or do something, I proactively research what I'm looking for. So if I want to find a doctor, if I want to find some type of restaurant, I do the research. I don't respond to anybody that contacts me.
That's good.
It's good information.
Yes.
I feel bad now because I respond to everyone.
Well,
So my
Hi,
recommendation
I'm a great
is
victim.
change your habit.
Yes.
And then in addition to that, if you get something from an entity, whether it's a voicemail, text message, or an email from somebody that may be legitimate, maybe the power company, maybe your doctor, don't respond to the number that they called you from or hit reply. Look up the legitimate number, legitimate email address for whoever that is, because they will pose as your doctor, power company, your bank, whoever it may be, and it will sound and seem completely legitimate, especially with AI that's out there now. Their ability to duplicate legitimate things is going that much further as far as being successful. But if you find the real number, you call that number, that's going to be your best ability to know that you're dealing with the legitimate entity and not somebody posing as them.
Yeah, they're really good with the emails and making it look like whatever. We got it at the business about a year and a half ago from, FP&L saying we didn't pay our bill and the bill was $3,000. Now I was like, listen, that would have been like 10 months we didn't pay the bill. They would have shut the power off. But when you click the link, it really looks like,
Correct.
the page, and then they get your sign in information and then they got our bank account. But so it's scary because that happens. And I think someone's first inclination in that thing is, crap, I owe $3,000. I don't want my power shut off. Whereas maybe are they banking on that fear factor versus like a rational person stopping and saying, wait, $3,000, my power would have been shut off, and that's 10 months.
And you hit the exact other part besides impersonation is they use emotion. So in your case, the power getting shut off or you getting arrested for a minor criminal offense like jury duty, people are scared.
Yeah.
Or, hey, you just won the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes, third place prize. So then you're elated because you've won some money and a Mercedes or whatever they say that the part of the prize is. So they suck you in with that emotion and get you to believe because you feel like I have to do this for whatever reason that is. Nobody wants their grandkid to stay in jail.
Yeah.
Well, most people don't want their
Yeah.
grandkids to stay in jail. Some of them may not like their grandkids, but ultimately that's why they're willing to send money out, is because you don't want your grandkid to stay in jail for DUI. Let me bail them out. We'll deal with it legally. You send $5,000 for bail money, and it was never part of what the process was.
It's such an issue with our seniors because many are lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's somebody who calls them and says, hey, and you think you have a relationship, you think you have a friend, and you're getting scammed.
Yep.
And it could be something small at first or something big, but because people are lonely out there, and here's a contact, either over the phone or in an email, and they're reaching out and they think they're talking to a real person.
Yes, and the criminals are very savvy with what they do. So you have the robocalls, and usually those have most people realize that the robocall is illegitimate. Then you've got others that have actually somebody at the other end of the line that they're talking to. Maybe seems a little bit more legitimate, but they don't know who you individually are. But you have other people that they'll research you as an elderly person and know who your grandkid is because your grandkid probably has social media. And so they'll know what your grandkid sounds like. They'll know what they call you. They'll know certain information. So it will seem legitimate. And they're simply trolling the net, doing research, no different than a college research paper on you. So whenever they contact you, it seems so spot on. And in fact, it's just a scam. But if you don't answer your phone in the first place, you don't have to worry about it.
That's so scary.
So the advice would be, let the phone ring, let it go into your voicemail. And if it's somebody important, they'll leave a message.
Exactly. So if, hey, it's an attorney or it's your grandkid themselves, whoever it is, and then say, okay, who am I dealing with? If this is attorney so-and-so or jail so-and-so that my grandkid's in, look up the real number for that attorney online or the real correctional facility and call them and say, hey, my grandkid so-and-so, supposedly they're down there. Is this true? But don't call the number that they left you or the number on the caller ID, because all that is spoofed and you're just going to go right into that criminal's portal.
That's
Good
scary.
information.
So it's a habit change, and it's the hardest thing for people to do because you're afraid, hey, I'm going to miss that important phone call. You're not. You're going to save yourself a whole bunch of headaches, and you're going to realize that I'm not missing anything because ever since I've done it, I have not missed one important thing that wasn't left that I could deal with on a quick callback.
And can you block a call? Like, was it star 69 or star 89 that you can block calls?
Different phone systems have ways of blocking numbers. A lot of your scammers use Magic Jack or a VoIP, so it just randomly generates numbers. And so the number they call on this time is going to be a different number next time than a different number next time. Consistent numbers are usually what legitimate people use. But also technology out there will let scammers pick a number. So we've had people get calls from the sheriff's office and the caller ID has our number that pops up, or even 911. So it seems a little bit more legitimate, and those are your more sophisticated criminals. So don't necessarily believe it if it's on the caller ID. You may want to answer it because it comes up as a legitimate contact. But if they start saying things or asking things that you're like, wait, this isn't what my doctor would ask me. I just have an appointment and now they want a credit card number. Hang up. Call your doctor's office back.
Because you get calls in 239 and you think, oh, it's 239, it must be legit.
I've had them call from my own number, number calling me.
And again, technology can do anything.
Wild.
You're thinking about yourself most of the time where you're like, oh, there's no way I could do this. But criminals, again, you have some very sophisticated enterprises out there that make a lot of money, billions of dollars. And it behooves them to figure out this technology advancement and how it works for them. And then they end up taking advantage of you.
So, we're talking about technology, but what about, like the person who befriends somebody at a bar or at a restaurant, and then
the checkout girl at Publix.
The checkout girl at Publix, and then that person, gets it, in someone's, their will or their power of attorney. And how do you prevent some of that?
That can be a lot more difficult. With the online scams or the phone scams, you can be anywhere in the world and reach out to somebody anywhere in the world. So you got 7 billion people that can interact with each other. The in-person thing, obviously, somebody has to physically be near you. Same thing with your home burglary. Somebody has to physically be there to break into your home. So you're talking a much smaller group. With that, always tread lightly. People can be nice, and they can also use overt and covert techniques to suck you into what they want. And a lot of times it can take a while to do it. So they will just slowly work through it. Some of your online scams, the criminal will talk to you for months, and never ask you for anything. They bait you in with that friendship, and next thing you know, you're there. So always try to keep some type of barrier, understand what your limitations are, and be willing to say no. You can say no nicely. No, thank you. No, I'm not interested in doing that. I'd rather not. No, any of that. And stick with that no. People will be like, oh, no, let's try that. No, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. Just like those salespeople at the mall or wherever else, if you don't want to talk to them, just say no, thank you, and keep walking.
I always felt, it's always nice to have that independent third party. I need to talk to my son about this. I need to talk to my daughter about this. I need to talk to my wife about this.
Absolutely. Having somebody that can look out for you that you trust to get that extra opinion. And I recommend that with bank withdrawals or bank transfers. Give yourself a limit. And then anything above that, have somebody that will be able to verify why you want to withdraw that money. Because ultimately, if you have no reason to withdraw $20,000, there should be no reason for you to go to a bank and withdraw $20,000 without somebody saying, okay, you're doing this. I see what it is, and it's a legitimate thing. I've been able to verify it too. We will both agree that the $20,000 should be withdrawn for this purpose. But unfortunately, we see people that can, because it's their money. They go down to the bank, they're getting scammed, and they make these large withdrawals or large transfers. And once that's given to somebody, it's almost impossible to get back.
So I kind of have two things here. If I'm of sound mind as a senior, that's when I could appoint someone to be on the bank or approve these things. But what happens when you're starting to have a decline? I've not done that, and now my adult child wants to come in and do that. Like, are these places going to allow them to do that? Or
every situation is different. If you are an adult and you have an account, ultimately that's yours. What I recommend to people is once Alzheimer's or dementia or whatever sets in, you're not aware of it. That's part of the process of having something like that as a degenerative disease. So if you can set it up ahead of time when you're of sound mind, you've got all your stuff. You can do what you want with it to some extent. Just put in some fail safes, some checks and balances, whoever your banker is that you're extremely comfortable with, especially if you have a lot of wealth. But if you have a son or a daughter that you're comfortable with, just have them with you on your account or however you want to set it up. Look at what your options are. So that way you have that check and balance. So they or whoever you want to get your money at the end, one, you've got that money to keep you living well throughout your entire life that you have. And two, any inheritance that you have can go to somebody that you want it to, not a scammer in another country. And unfortunately, we see these scammers in other countries getting a large amount of wealth from people in the United States.
And you got to be so careful because, and I'm sure, you all have seen this. Sometimes an adult child isn't as honest as you hope they would be. And so I've seen it where, some adult children have just ripped off their parents.
Yes. And there's no perfect solution out there. I'd like to tell you, hey, if you do this, this will work. It doesn't work that way. There are better ways of doing things. Whereas if you don't give your adult child sole access to your stuff, they have a check and balance, then it can minimize their ability to scam you out of money as well if they end up going down the wrong path.
So then the second part of my question is, there's so many online or technology safeguards that are put into place for children. If they want to buy an app, they text their parent to approve it or whatever. Is there anything that is like that for seniors that can be put on their jitterbug phone or their iPhone? Like, what's out there that could help them? If I'm an adult child in Michigan and my mom's living down here, does that exist?
That's actually a great question. And realistically, no. As an adult, you have access to whatever you want. Yeah. So ultimately, what I recommend is only use those things that are relevant to you. Everybody wants you to sign up for something or put this app on your phone or do this. If you're not going to use it frequently, just don't do it. It's not worth your time. And you can use those same checks and balances that are used for kids. You can try that, but ultimately as an adult, you are able to put on and do what you want to with what you have.
And then thinking about just different practices for seniors, like when they're online and stuff, like I'm sure having different passwords and making them complex is key. Not, don't have the same password everywhere. But again, like, I mean, I see it with my mom. I could tell you that I'm sure it's her cat and my birthday is her password for every website known to man. And I just think that that's so dumb.
And you just told everybody.
Yeah, actually, I probably did. Sorry, Kitty. But I mean, she loves Tank, so
Eh,
it's not me.
There's ideal ways of doing things. And yes, ideally, you've got different logins, different passwords. Realistically, it's too much of a pain in the butt for people to remember all that stuff. So do things that make sense to you, but minimize your signature. The fewer things that you have, as far as apps and stuff, the better off you are. What I do recommend in conjunction with that is don't just have one email address. Have a main email address that you use for important things. And what's important can be relative, but when I say important, I mean your doctor, your bank account, those key things just like that, not for online shopping or not for signing up for a rewards program, just for those top elite things that have your personal information associated with them. Then have a second email address that you may use for shopping or other things. And then ideally a third thing if you need to do a verification or whatever else. Sounds like pain for people, but with that, just write the stuff down. Write each email down on a piece of paper and what your password is on a piece of paper. Because I mentioned before, you got 7 billion people in the world that can get on your online device. You've only got a very small amount of people that are going to be near you in person. So the odds of them finding that piece of paper in your purse or in a file drawer in an obscure thing in your place is probably pretty minimal. And then that way, if you need to log in on one email address, then you can look up what that email address and password is and be able to deal with it. But if one gets hacked, that's a key thing is, you're dealing with one of these low-level purchases. Somehow that gets some malware on your computer, and the next thing you know, they're in your bank account and your doctor's, whatever it is. But if you have those separate, then it can really minimize all that spam and everything else that comes out there.
That's great advice. Very, very
Yeah.
good. What about virtual credit cards? Do you recommend those? Because it seems like I'm always like every 6 months I'm getting a new credit card because someone got a hold of the number. And so I know Capital One has a virtual credit card that they offer.
Great point on the credit card part. We recommend using credit cards as compared to almost every other form of payment. Because a lot of the other forms of payment, like most people like to write checks that are older because they've written checks their entire life. Checks are terrible. They've got your bank account number, the name of your bank, your name and address on them, all that stuff that leads directly into your money. I don't want criminals to have that. And even if you go straight to the post office, a lot of your mail is getting intercepted at the post offices now. Criminals have gone to super extents in order to try to find these checks. Credit cards are the bank's money. The bank is lending you up to the limit and you pay it off at the end of the month. But if that gets hacked, they just send you a new credit card and you have not lost any of your money. So make the best effort you can to protect your money. Utilize the bank's money. So that way, if it does get skimmed or scammed or whatever, it's an annoyance for you. They'll send you another number, however it works with whatever bank you use. You mentioned Capital One and their virtual card. But if you use that credit card for your payments, if that gets ripped off, you have not lost a thing. Debit card can be a direct portal to your bank account depending on how it's used. Don't like debit cards. I like credit cards because, again, it's an easy way to accept the fact that I may get scammed, but when I do, I have not lost anything.
What about all these? I don't even know them all, but Zelle, Cash App, whatever. It feels like every day when it's lunchtime in my office, one person buys, and then everybody's got a different online method to transfer someone money. And the only thing I have is Apple Cash because I don't know how to link all the other stuff because I think it's linked directly back to your bank account and you're essentially transferring from that.
Correct.
I think people are using that like trading cash, but if it's going right back to your bank account, I can't imagine that that's ideal. And is that as protected as like if I just use my credit card?
And that's the key word is protection. How are you protected with what you're using? If you send money or someone else sends money through this payment method, are you going to be able to get that money back if it's a scam? And if it's not able to be done, then I would recommend not using it or understanding what it is. But if you're using 7 different payment methods, you're probably overwhelming your ability to protect what you have. It's convenient for you at the time, and it's convenient with who you're dealing with. But ultimately, how can you really keep track of where your money's going and what's happening with it? So the more you simplify what you're doing, as uncool as it may be, the easier it is for you to minimize how susceptible you are to theft.
I get made fun of every day. Every day it's like, how do you not have Zelle or Cash App or
Venmo.
what? Yeah, thank you. That's the other one. I'm like, you guys, I don't even, my debit card never was activated and it expired a year ago. So like, I don't even know how to connect that stuff. So maybe I might deal in that way that no one's getting me, but
And are you happy with your life, how it's going?
I'm thrilled.
So that is a perfect example of, hey, all this stuff's out here. I'm not using it, and my life works for me. So
Yeah.
don't get sucked into all these other people that want to do stuff. If you're happy with how things are going, as long as you can keep track of your money and where that stuff's going.
Yeah, I mean, it's Apple. I mean, and I will say, because I did fall victim to a scam, when Apple does text you that, hey, I think this is a scam. If you do it, you're not getting your money back. Believe Apple, not the idiot that tells you, oh, that's because I'm not a contact in your phone. Yeah.
So what else? What other precautions can people take
As far as
to protect themselves, to avoid, I guess, more online scams? So that's kind of drill down on that.
simplification of your life is the main thing that I will tell people is ask yourself, what am I getting versus what am I giving? What do people want? There's so many things out there that people want your information, and it goes into these databases and these algorithms are used. And you have to ask yourself, all right, if I'm giving my 10-digit phone number for a rewards card, am I getting any rewards from this that are worth the time? Or do I not want to give it to them? In addition, do I want them to have my phone number, or do I just want to give them a 10-digit number that I write down? And if you use it 5 times, you're going to memorize it anyways. It could be an old phone number or whatever else. And then that way it's not actually associated with you. You're just giving them a 10-digit, basically rewards number if you're going to end up using that. But there's a lot of questions out there, and it could be at your doctor's office. I was at a doctor's office a week or 2 ago, just for an annual checkup, and they had all these questions that had absolutely nothing to do with what I was there for. So I just left them blank. They don't need to know what type of transportation I use to get to the doctor's office. That's irrelevant to why I'm there.
Right.
So just don't answer it. Don't give it to them. I don't want to reward.
Why do they need your social security number?
Correct.
Why?
So just because there's a question there, or just because somebody asked for it, doesn't mean that you need to do it. I was at a store 6 months ago, and the guy asked if I was part of their rewards program. I said no. He's like, all right, let's get you started. And I said, no, I'm not interested. I just want to make this one purchase. You would have thought he lost his firstborn child at the reaction that he gave me based on me just saying I didn't want to do that, which tells me that everybody he asks gives them his email address, their phone number, and all this other stuff. They don't need that.
No.
And do they actually need your physical address, or do you have an alternative address that you can give them? Do you really want to give them your real name, or can you give them an alternative spelling of your name? If it's your bank or your doctor, they need your real information. If it's a rewards card or something, do they really need it, or is there an alternative thing that you can give them that doesn't give all these databases out there your real information?
Especially if you have a sort of a bogus email address that you could give them, and that would be where all that stuff gets dumped into.
Yep, that's that 3-tier, at minimum 2 email addresses. If you don't have 2, you're really doing yourself a disservice. 3 makes it a little bit easier for you.
So my father-in-law, who is going to be 94 in about a week, is avid on Facebook. Just loves Facebook, loves interacting with Facebook, good or bad. But he's saying, Bruce, I'm getting all these pop-ups, and they're saying, they want money because these pop-ups come up on my Facebook, and they're saying, I'm watching porno or whatever. And this guy's 94 years old. So like, what do you do? And it's like, I told him I could put some type of, protection on his Facebook, but
your privacy setting is key. make yourself private on any online thing, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever else. So that way other entities can't see you and interact with you. So that way your selections of who you contact are the only things within your circle. If you're more open, these criminals from throughout the world that have nothing to do other than scam people out of money just troll these sites and look for people like him. And then they end up infiltrating, sending pop-ups and all this type of stuff that seem real because they're using real pictures. They can use real family members' pictures because I'm on your grandkid's Instagram account, copying pictures, saving them on my computer, and then sending them as part of an email address. And you're actually looking at legit pictures from your grandkid just with somebody posing as them. And that's where if you keep that privacy setting on high and you're only dealing with who you want to, it can minimize that type of stuff. But if you get in so deep, especially on your email address or Facebook or whatever it may be, where you're just getting scam after scam after scam, it may be worth creating a new profile and starting all over to get rid of all that other stuff. So that way you can say, all right, and remember who your key contacts are that you want to go before you close down that one account.
That's good advice.
When you create your new account. So that way, all right, I got my kids, I got my friends, maybe 2 businesses, whatever it may be. And then you just start all over. Is it a headache? Yes, but criminals are working hard to take your money. They're working every second of every day to try to take money from people. So you have to do a little bit to protect yourself, your money, your identity, because otherwise they will pillage you to no extent.
Which is such a great point, that these criminals, this is their full-time job. This is all that they do. This is how they survive, is to scam people.
14 hours a day, every day. Some of these individuals work as part of a larger criminal enterprise. But yeah, it's nuts how much time they spend trying to scam you out of money.
So transitioning a little, I saw that commercial on TV last week about like they're taking your home title, and then they're paying off your mortgage or opening another mortgage, and then you don't find out about it for 6 months until you're defunct and you're being foreclosed on.
Correct.
So like, where did that come from?
Brilliant criminals thinking on how to get money. And so basically the scam is that they will go down to the clerk's office wherever you live. If you have a title to your home or your business, they will file fraudulent paperwork, usually a quitclaim deed, that then transfers that title over to them. They aren't actually going to take your property. They're not going to move in. At least we haven't seen that to that extent. They are simply going to use the equity in your property to get an equity loan from a financial institution saying that they are now the owner of that property. So they have found one of these little niches out there that normal people would never do or even think of. And so it ends up being a scam against a bank or financial institution. The Collier clerk's office, Crystal Kinzel, came up with a great plan of allowing you to put some protection. So if anybody, you go online to their office, you end up putting your information in there. And then that way, if anybody ends up trying to submit paperwork under your name, it will send you an email or a text message saying that, hey, there's been activity in your account. Is this legitimate? And then check out, was that really you? Or if it wasn't, then you've at least got that flag, almost like fraudulent alerts at a bank where you get that bank fraud alert.
And just to add to all that, I know you can go into all 3 credit reporting agencies, TransUnion, Experian, and you can put a credit freeze on all your things.
Yes, you are entitled to 1 credit check per credit reporting agency per year for free. So I recommend going online, checking your credit. It's free, and you can see what's happened, if anything, and then spread it out. So do Equifax in January and TransUnion in May, and make sure that everything looks good that's on there, and then freeze your credit. And if you have kids or grandkids, freeze their credit too. Just because they're 4 doesn't mean that I can't take their social and their name and go get an equity loan against them. And you probably won't see that for a decade until you open something up. And criminals.
So I do this, I freeze my credit, and then if I want to, buy a car or something, then I unfreeze it.
Yep.
And you go online and you give them a specific date range that you want it unfroze during this time frame. It's very, very easy. It's easy stuff, but you can freeze your credit. You can
Yeah. Freezing is
Really?
not eliminating your credit. I get a lot of people that think if I freeze my credit, I get no credit. That's not correct. All it does is if a bank wants to give somebody a loan and your credit's frozen, they're not going to give them the loan or the lease or whatever it is. So that way, if somebody's committing identity theft against you, they're not going to be able to get that loan ideally. But like you said, you unfreeze it before you're going to make this financial transaction. You conduct the transaction and then you refreeze it. And then that way, your ability to worry about somebody committing identity theft against you is going to be minimized.
I don't
And
think people know about that.
and you can do the same thing with your Social Security.
You can contact the Social Security office and ask them what they can do, but ultimately that's in conjunction with that credit freeze. But you have to go to each credit reporting agency as well. So you can't just call one and it works for all of them. Each one is an individual reporting agency, so you have to
It's
contact each
very,
one
very
individually.
simple.
It is
You know,
simple.
you just got to log in. Obviously you got to remember your login information, but you know, you got to log in, and there's a drop down and says freeze my credit.
Write it down. Piece of paper stuck in an obscure spot in your place is the best way to keep track of all this stuff. So that way, when it happens, and if you're too lazy to write it down, I'm sorry, but you've got bigger problems. So change your habits, make things work for you, because those criminals, you know, how much time are you willing to spend to make $100,000? So if you're not willing to spend 5 minutes to write something down and to freeze your credit, and you lose $100,000, that's really what it boils down to, as far as you spending the time to protect yourself from somebody trying to take your information or your money.
What advice do you have for seniors just kind of out in public or at events in the community to keep them safe, or that they should consider when they leave the home?
Stay in your lane. Whatever you're going to do, if you're going to go shopping or whatever else, just focus on that. Sometimes we get criminal entities that come in the area, and it's not just Naples, it's all sorts of nice places all over the country. And people will try to nicely intimidate you or distract you in order to take your jewelry, take your purse, reach into your purse and take something. Don't get distracted. If somebody has a question about squishy mangoes or which is the best type of milk, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that. Or keep your purse on you, keep it zipped up. If you got a little lock, you can do it. That's great, because ultimately you probably don't need anything in your purse. Even if you have a list, take it out when you get in there, close your purse. When you go to pay for it, open up your purse, grab your credit card, pay for it, put it back, close your purse. But again, these distraction issues do pop up occasionally. They look for vulnerable people. But if you're like, no, I'm sorry, I can't help you. No, ask somebody else. It's going to keep you from being victimized by these people out there that are really savvy. They may not look like criminals. They may look like nice families, or they're foreign. They have an accent. So you're like, can never do anything to me. And then you find out the hard way that you were the victim of a scam.
I see it all the time. You know, you go to Publix and someone leaves their purse in their cart, and
Yeah.
they're out there squeezing mangoes, and they left their purse in the cart.
Yep. Easy target for criminals if they do that. But even the ones that keep them with them, the criminals are like, I think I can scam that person because of the demeanor of them. And then they'll give it a shot. And if it works, it works.
It's scary out there because I think we're so distracted by so much, right? You have your phone. Is that an email, a text, a phone call? I mean, I know I get out of the car, I'm looking at my phone, I'm so distracted, I'm going into the store. I'm sure people are like, oh, that's ideal.
So
Unsure.
so let's talk about, we acknowledge the fact that people get scammed. So let's talk about, what do you do if you get scammed?
A little bit of research ahead of time can help you out. And your ability to get scammed, no matter what you do, is out there, because your information's in your doctor's office, your information's at your bank, credit reporting agencies. They all have your personal identifying information, and a whole bunch of more places. So if any of those gets hacked, which you see all these major entities have gotten hacked over time, that stuff's on the dark web. So you have to accept the fact that, hey, I could be the victim of identity theft. If your credit's frozen, then they can try to use your social and your name, and it's probably not going to work. But ultimately, if you do see that you've been scammed or your credit card's been hacked, figure out ahead of time, if you can, what needs to happen. And then start looking at, how can I make myself whole? And that's where decisions that you make versus things that happen are a key difference. If you decide I am going to send money to somebody, then that is on you. So if you send $20,000 somewhere, then you're going to be out that 20 grand because you made that decision. If somebody contacts a bank, poses as you, and that bank lends 20 grand, you're the victim of identity theft, but ultimately you should be made whole. You may have to file a report online, go to ftc.gov, Federal Trade Commission. They will give you a report number for your identity theft issue, and you can work with these companies to try to make yourself whole on getting hacked. If somebody hacked your bank account, work with your financial institution. You're not the first or thousandth person that's had this happen to them. Most people are very distraught when it happens, and I get it. 3 days later, you realize that, hey, I got to fill out a bunch of paperwork, but I will be made whole. The key thing is don't send your own money and figure out if it's your money that was stolen or if it was really the bank's money. If it's the bank's money, again, a lot of paperwork that you got to go through. It's a headache for you, but it's a lot better than losing your money.
And do they contact the sheriff's department? Do they?
Depends on what it is. If you have local activity, like if somebody's using your credit card locally, we'd like you to contact us. Otherwise, the Federal Trade Commission, if you go to ftc.gov, federaltradecommission.gov, you can file a report with them and they will give you the report number that you will need for any financial institution. But for most of this stuff, contacting the sheriff's office is not going to do much for you because the feds have a greater range of dealing with these type of issues. Again, unless there was actually local activity that you can identify that occurred here in Collier County.
Is there somebody like you in Lee County?
Yes, Lee County is a financial crimes as well as a crime prevention entity. So most counties have it. It's something that we live with nowadays. And so every agency has that ability to be contacted. And in conjunction with that, I want to throw out one thing with your money. Protect your money. And when I say that, we've gotten so used to things being easy. Hey, I just pick up my phone, I push a button, and I get whatever I want to. It's easy for you, but does that really make sense that your stuff's protected? So things like two-factor authentication, and it's become more and more popular recently, and a lot of people find it to be annoying that not only do they log in, but now they have to go on their phone and type in a number. If that annoys you, then you need to reset who you are because those are there to protect you. So I have something worked out with my bankers that if there's going to be any type of significant withdrawal, that if they get called, they're going to call me back. And if I get a call from them, I'm going to call them back. And then there's certain code words and all this stuff because I want to make it so impossible for criminals to take my money from me that it's just not going to happen. It requires a little bit more work on my part and on behalf of my financial institution, but go on the more hard way of doing things because it makes it almost impossible for criminals. Whereas if they just have to push a button on a phone, you can imagine how easy it is for you to lose your money in your accounts, and we don't want that.
That's wild. So are there local resources or supports or things that can help seniors if they have questions or if there is something about this that they can talk to someone or report stuff?
Absolutely. The sheriff's office is here for you. We have a variety of entities. We have a senior crimes unit, which works with seniors as far as proactive things, whether it's lifestyle, financial things, whatever else. We have a financial crimes unit. We even have a fraud hotline, which is 239-252-CALL, which is 2255. And so if you think something may be a scam, you can contact that number. I can tell you most of the time, people that contact it, it's a scam because if you're already calling about it, then you know it's a scam. You're just trying to verify it. It's not staffed 24/7. Leave a message, but we'll get back with you. We have a crime prevention unit that is here for you. So ultimately, if you reach out to the sheriff's office, our website is www.colliersheriff.org, or our main number is 239-774-4434, and ask for, again, senior crimes, crime prevention, or fraud unit. Doesn't matter which. Whoever you talk to will assess what your issue is and hopefully get you in touch with the right person. And we would much rather help you out before you get scammed as compared to after you've gotten scammed. But ultimately, we're here for you no matter what.
And I know that you're very busy, and I've heard you speak at different organizations. So, can somebody, if they, live in a country club, can they book you to come speak to their homeowners, or can a senior community book you to talk to their residents?
Likely, yes. Reach out to me. Let me know what you have going on. And as long as it fits the parameters, we love to get the word out. Naples is arguably the nicest community in the entire United States. And I have found that by proactively dealing with people, good people like yourself, that want to keep this a nice, safe community, it's almost like treating your house for cockroaches. If you can keep the cockroaches out ahead of time, it's a whole lot better than after they infest your house. So we kind of keep that same philosophy here, where if we can keep those criminals out, have you commit best practices in your lifestyle to minimize your victimization, that's what we strive for, to keep this, again, the best community to live in.
Great.
What do you think, family members, neighbors, communities, what can they do for each other? I think we all probably know a senior that maybe their spouse passed away and now they, are living in the home next to you alone or down the road. How can we look out for them, or what should we?
That's difficult because sometimes, and you mentioned people out there being lonely, it can take a decent amount of time, but being a good witness or a good neighbor or whatever it is can really pay dividends over the long run. You know your community better than I do. I can drive through your community, and if somebody's wearing all black holding a crowbar, I know that that's a suspicious person, but there's a lot of things that occur that I couldn't pick up on, but you do, by knowing what the normal things are that go on. So same thing with your neighbor. If you see mail piling up, or a home getting disheveled, or just stopping by every couple days, and if something doesn't look right, know who the family is so you can contact them. Hey, your mother doesn't look like she's doing too well. You probably should come down here and check them out, or give them a call. And have them utilize you as a sounding device, where, hey, I'm getting these calls, I don't know what to do. That way you can try to figure out what the best solution is for it.
Being that Southwest Florida is so senior friendly, and we do have, big season, which, floods our community even more. Is there any special training that you and the sheriff's office go through for interacting with seniors? I mean, I imagine that there's interactions with those that have Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, and I know what it's like for me running a home care company, teaching my caregivers what it's like to engage with them. And that's their job, their profession. But for you guys, obviously, your job and profession is not senior elderly care, but I imagine you're interacting with them. So is there anything
Correct.
about that?
There is certain trainings that we do receive, and depending on the unit, they may get more advanced training. But ultimately, police are in your community dealing with people hour to hour, day to day.
Yeah.
And so our real world experience typically allows us some of your best interactive skills that are out there. And because you said it is a senior community in a lot of ways, we have a lot of contacts with seniors. So we realize ultimately how we should talk to them, what to look for, the interactive part. No different than working in a school. If you work in an elementary school, you're going to learn and understand how to deal with 5 to 10-year-olds, as compared to somebody that works in a high school every day. You have to deal with the teenagers and what their issues are. So again, our day-to-day activity, we don't live in a room. We are out there on the front lines, and that really makes us extremely skilled as far as being able to interact, still given the fact that every officer has their own individual personalities.
Yeah.
And so you're going to get a different reaction from each person, no different than each individual citizen that's out there.
I'll take seniors any day over high schoolers.
Hmm.
I'll take them every day. But yeah, it's scary. I mean, I've been running Bright Star now for almost 12 years, and I've seen a variety of different things. There's caregivers out there and things happen, and I've had to call the police and, different things. But I think it's always challenging out there when you have to engage in that situation, because there are seniors that are declining rapidly, but they present very well, or they have a trusted, person that I see is taking advantage of them, but they compose very well. And then here comes the home care agency that they just want to point the finger at. And it can be challenging in those things. I've seen those scenarios play out, and it can be confusing. Everybody I've ever interacted with has been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
And you know, I have a couple clients that have been with me for, 7, 8 years now. And I would say that they probably have a Collier County Sheriff's punch card at this point. Um, at the amount of times that they call, just because that's where they're at in life, but they can't get into a facility because they don't meet that criteria. And trying to manage that can be very difficult. And I would think in our community, that's a higher percentage than what it is in the normal, town wherever in the United States.
Yes, and in conjunction with that, scammers know that this is a higher elderly population here. So if they're doing some more of those quasi robocall things, they're going to do something that targets more of your elderly population. And the area code 239 is going to provide that to them. So those savvy entities out there will research that and know that a scam involving elderly people is going to be a whole lot more productive than if they try to do it in, say, Silicon Valley, where you have a very minimal amount of elderly people, and then vice versa.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So I know you wear many hats, and I know we talked about this in the very beginning, but can you tell us seniors what they should do with their prescription drugs?
Your prescription drugs, depending on how you want to get rid of them, there are prescription drop boxes that are at a variety of retailers that are out there. Walgreens, CVS, a few others. You can look it up online. In addition to our substations have drop boxes, at least for now. And so you're able to dispose of medication that way. Otherwise, there are products out there that you can get or purchase from most of your pharmacies where you can basically dilute it and you can pour little packets in with it, or there's bags that you can put it in and it will safely dispose of those. So there's a variety of way for you to eliminate your prescription drugs. If you want to get rid of a couple pills, you can get rid of a couple pills. But if you have a large amount of stuff, those are probably the three main ways.
And kind of tying it back into scams, do people need to worry about their prescription bottles and the labels on their prescription bottles and people taking that? And
ultimately, anything that you can shred that has personal identifying information, please do. For the most part, everything is done digitally through your phone or your computer. So those hard things have sort of gone by the wayside as far as people digging through your trash or whatever. I can go on the dark web and purchase your credit card number for $4 to $6. Why am I going to dive through your trash? But yeah, if you want to rip those labels off just to make sure that nobody gets your information, can associate you with a certain drug that's beneficial for you. Sometimes you may have to soak that bottle to get that label to deteriorate to be able to pull it off. Different ways of doing it. But yeah, if you can minimize stuff that has your information on it leaving your house, please do so.
So be smart, be aware, take control.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Change your habits.
Three excellent 4 phrases. Yes.
I think change your habits is the one that's going to stick out to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I've learned a lot today. I'm sure Riley has.
So
right, buddy?
go over if people needed to reach you. Go give those numbers again.
Our website is colliersheriff.org, and our main phone number is 239-774-4434. So those are the 2 main ways that you can contact the sheriff's office.
Okay.
You can ask for me by name, crime prevention unit, our senior crimes unit, and then also for identity theft issues, FTC, federaltradecommission.gov is probably the guru out there. So if you need to make a report or if you want information, there's forms on there, like form letters. So if you're the victim of this or that, there's already a pre-formed letter. You just fill in the idiot boxes and send it to the bank, send it to whoever. And again, it's so rampant that, again, those form letters exist for whatever type of victimization you have.
That's awesome.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that we should be talking about or you want to add?
I think we've covered everything pretty well for purposes of this podcast. If you have individual questions, again, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to help you. But realize that how things worked 20 years ago are different nowadays, and you really have to adjust yourself for it as much as you may not want to. But the simplification of your life, don't let all this noise and craziness that's happening out there get you sucked out there. Keep it simple to what you need, what works for you, and all that other stuff. Just like what Susan said, where I don't do this, I don't do this, I don't do this. And you see how happy she is sitting right here. If you don't need to do it, don't do it. If you can pay with a credit card and cash, super easy for you to do.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been amazing. I've learned so much. I'm I'm slightly embarrassed. My father was in the Secret Service. I feel like I should be a better non-victim, but I feel like I'm your classic victim. So thank you for teaching me something today that my father failed to teach me.
And I'm glad to hear that I've made an impact on you, because
Yeah.
I was a little worried about you at the beginning, but
I
now I
was-
feel better that
I'm
you're
worried about me too,
taking
but I'm
some different steps.
absolutely. I've learned a lot and a lot that I want to share. I think there's stuff here I can bring back and share with my caregivers to be more proactive with their clients. And I really thank you for that. Thank you for being here. I know we've gone over. I can anxiously see the guys for the next episode at the door.
When experience matters the most, Senior Housing Solutions uses over 30 years of industry knowledge to provide expert advice for those considering a move to a senior living community. We are the matchmakers of senior housing. Call today at 239-595-0207 for your free consultation.
So thank you so much. I'm excited. Next week's episode, we're going to talk all about Medicare. So we're going to decode the Medicare maze. We've got a great friend of yours, Carolyn Marks, is coming on.
Yes.
And I'm certainly excited about that. Do you have any question or anything you want to leave our listeners with as we prepare for Medicare?
Well, I think there's just so much confusion between Medicare and Medicaid and what it covers and what it doesn't cover. And so, the whole thing, Medicare just has a big question mark by it. So, I think we're just going to dig into that. But thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, guys. See you next week.
Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media. You can also find more information and resources at www.theaginggamepodcast.com.